them to be activists, political activists, and protest. Since when is it your right in a school to teach my child to be an activist on one side or the other, or politics? Since when is it your right to teach my child about the family and what the family should look like? Since when is it your right as a school board member to teach my child to hate himself or herself just because of the color of the skin? These people are liars. And finally, in closing, if you think that it's just the school board, you're sorely mistaken. Our Commonwealth's attorneys are in cahoots with these people. Buddha Biberai, right here in Loudoun County, is attacking parents as well. Steve Descano in Fairfax, whom we started a recall against, is attacking law enforcement. Stand Up Virginia launched a recall of Steve Descano, and we're launching several more in the next coming weeks. So you'll be seeing school board recalls and Commonwealth attorney recalls at the same time. Lastly, I invite you to Freedom Fest. And I'll close that. Freedom Festival is this coming Saturday, June 19th from 2 to 5 p.m. We have Sheriff David Clark coming out from Wisconsin. We have Reverend C.L. Bryant from Freedom Works. We have Chris Plant from the Chris Plant Show. We have Pierre Wilson from Blexit. It's from 2 to 5 p.m. in Centerville. Tickets are $10 on Eventbrite. Children 12 and under are free. We need you to be there because when thousands of us show up, they stand down and we stand up. Love you guys. Our website is standupvirginia.com. Go sign up for a newsletter, donate. We're a 501c4 nonprofit. None of us are paid. Love you guys and thank you for the opportunity.
StandUpVirginia.com. They're doing amazing work. All right, I'm going to ask my next speaker, Ryan Scott Bomberger, to make his way to the front. I met him just recently at a school board meeting, and we took a picture together. It turns out my sister in Tampa, Florida, is friends with him. What a small world. Ryan Bomberger is the founder of the Radiance Foundation and lives here in Loudoun County.
Is anybody out here human? Because honestly, that's the only thing that matters. Let me just give you a little bit of my background so you can understand why I feel the way that I feel, especially when we talk about critical race theory. I'm from a small family of 15. I have 6 brothers, 6 sisters. 10 of us were adopted. White and black, Native American, Vietnamese, able, disabled, all loved like crazy. So when I hear people talk about critical race theory, which forces us into 2 categories, the oppressed and the oppressors, right? So I guess since I'm mixed, I'm in both categories. Perpetual state of confusion. But what I hate about critical race theory and the equity efforts, they keep saying, we're not teaching critical race theory, we're not teaching critical race theory. I'm like, you can give any euphemism to it that you want. You're still teaching the sewage, and that's what it is. I would use a stronger word, but there are children here. No, I'm joking, I wouldn't use stronger words. But it's sewage. It is ideological sewage that is being taught. But the weird thing is, it forces us, unlike what Martin Luther King Jr. talked about with character being more important than color, it reverses that. Assuming that you know me or I know you simply because of the beautiful hue of your skin. And by the way, can I just disabuse anybody of the notion that there's a separate category of people of color? We are all a color. Amen? Amen. Unless you're transparent. But what I hate about critical race theory is it forces us to look at everything and everyone through the broken prism of race instead of the breakthrough filter of Christ. So our schools would rather have kids look at somebody and pretend they know somebody simply because of the color of their skin. Look at my parents, for instance, and they'll say, oh, well, they have white privilege. Really? What does that even mean? 2 parents who had hardly any money, who brought children who didn't look like them into their family and loved us. Quite honestly, if the goal were racial reconciliation, which we all know with critical race theory has no intention of reconciliation, but if it were, one of the most beautiful acts of racial reconciliation is loving a child of a different color or ethnicity simply because he or she deserves to be loved. That's transracial adoption. But yet people will look at my parents because they're white and say, oh, well, they have privilege. You mean like my father who chose to love children that other men abandoned? Was that his privilege? it's such a nonsense concept. And the Loudoun County School Board, who I know we all have very strong opinions about LCPS and the school board, but if they actually understood what it was that they are trying to force on our children, I think some of them do know, some of them play naive, but it does nothing to actually make us a better society. I don't know if you can't see this, I normally carry a big poster, but can we just say this together? We are one human race. Acts 17:26, you're my brother, you're my sister. I am tired of a school trying to separate us, trying to segregate us, trying to divide us and make us suspicious of one another. First of all, it takes enough, and I'm a homeschooling parent. Our kids were temporarily in Hillsborough Charter School. We decided that was not going to continue. But prayers for all homeschooling parents for saying. But it takes a lot of energy for a student just to get through the regular day. But then they're trying to balance all the psychological, ideological nonsense, and they can't remember 2 + 10 equals. They don't need that. They don't need to know that there's supposedly 76 genders. There are only 2. It's all part of this. It's all part of the same thing. And when it comes down to it, it is all about our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, and yes, it's also about our freedom to support basic science, basic history, because that's what we do. We are the pro-science, pro-history, pro-truth crowd. Can I get an amen? So the next time someone tries to tell you, oh, we're not teaching critical race theory, just let them know, I don't care if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's definitely a duck, and that's what we have in our school board system. But I really want us to understand that we need parent-led education, not government-forced indoctrination. Amen? Thank you, people.
I'll tell my sister you said hi, okay, Ryan? All right, we have one more fantastic speaker, but what I want is all the speakers that spoke make their way here because we're going to have a group photo, okay? All right, last but not least, Ian Pryor. He's the Executive Director of Fight for Schools, one of my associate members, and also a badass. Here we go.
Well, thank you everyone here for coming. And to the people that came up here and spoke and exercised their First Amendment rights, let's give them a huge round of applause. And to the people that are here exercising their First Amendment rights to assemble, give yourself a round of applause. And to the person walking around with the white privilege is real, that took guts to come in here and exercise her First Amendment rights. So let's give her a round of applause. Now, you know, I may be the captain of Fight for Schools, but a captain is nothing without a battalion. And in my battalion, I've got an army of moms. They're at this all day, every day. And we got a dad too. So let's give them a big round of applause. Because they are the energy that is making this thing go. Now, I happened to see a interview with the new superintendent, Scott Ziegler. Now, I do find it interesting that the new superintendent of Loudoun County Public Schools is a white male. Where does that score on the oppressor chart? Does not seem very equitable to me, does it? But in this interview, he said, well, you know, this small minority of people that are vocal, they're just not talking to the students like I am. 2 points there. One, we just got back a poll that said 50% of people in Loudoun County oppose critical race theory. That same poll showed that by a margin of 20 points, people in Loudoun County support recalling the school board. Republicans, independents, and even Democrats support it. To the second point, the superintendent may talk to students every once in a while, but you know who talks to students every day? Their parents! And on Monday night before the school board meeting, I like to read my kids' books before bed about historical figures, you know, children's books. And there's this one series that I grew up with that really started my love of history. And, you know, it's The Value of Courage is Jackie Robinson. The Value of Foresight is Thomas Jefferson. And I've been going through all these books with them. And on Monday night, I read The Value of Curiosity, which is Christopher Columbus. And the next day, when I got back from the school board meeting, my second grader came downstairs with my kindergartner and said, "Daddy, why did you read us a book about a bad guy?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, we learned from a video today in school that he was a murderer and enslaved everybody." Now look, I get that things that happened 700 years ago, when viewed through today's lens, are unacceptable. But there's a time and a place, and second grade is not that time and place. And I watched that video, and it's not appropriate for a second grader, but the more important thing with that video was the subtleties. The subtleties where they were injecting that Christianity coming over to the New World was bad. Capitalism was bad. European liberalism was bad. And then here's why we don't celebrate Columbus Day anymore. Again, not appropriate for a second grader. And we're seeing this everywhere. We're seeing it in elementary school, and we are seeing it in middle school and in high school. They're teaching our kids age-inappropriate things. They are teaching ninth graders about rape, about group sex, things that are totally inappropriate. Now, I keep hearing that we're spreading misinformation. I got an email sent to me today by a guy on the board of supervisors, Bob Turner. Mike Turner, whatever, never heard of him. And he said that we're spreading misinformation and that the Attorney General did a report and the Equity Collaborative did a report. Well, for somebody who's going to weigh in on school issues, they might want to do their homework, because we have done our homework. And so let's talk a little bit. I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it to all of you. How did all of this happen? How did all of the equity initiatives and whatever you want to call it, whatever they want to label it on whatever day it is, happen? Well, let's back up to 2019. Madison Trust Elementary School. You probably saw it on the national news. It was billed as a runaway slave game. It was not. It was not that at all. In fact, it was an Underground Railroad simulation that was invented 30 years ago by anti-racist and equity trainers. It's been all over the country, in conferences, in schools, and at one conference in 2011, one of the gym teachers went to that conference, sent by the schools, and learned about this exercise. So what did they do? They did this exercise at Black History Month to show about the heroes of the Underground Railroad. The principal was all on board. He tweeted how great it was. The staff was all on board. Everything's great. And then the NAACP got a complaint, and then they blew it up and put these two gym teachers on blast in the national media for trying to do exactly what the school was telling them to do. And then what happened? Eric Williams hired the Equity Collaborative, a consultant that specializes in critical race theory. All you have to do is plug in the Google machine, Google Equity Collaborative and critical race theory, and then, superintendent, come back to me and tell me there's no critical race theory in your schools. Everything you based what you're doing on is from the Equity Collaborative. And then what happened from there? Well, the NAACP brought a complaint to the Attorney General based on the Equity Collaborative report. The Attorney General filed against Loudoun County Public Schools, and then Loudoun County Public Schools settled, and now we're stuck with the Equity Collaborative running our schools. Now, I'm going to say this because it's important. When we're looking at who to blame for what's happened, we got to look at ourselves. We have sat here with apathy, disinterest, and distraction for years. And that is what has happened right under our very noses. But it did take a pandemic to start to rouse us from our sleep. Parents started showing up at school board meetings, talking about the damage that was being done to their kids, the damage that was being done to their family, that is still happening now. And then, what happened next? Well, for going and speaking at school board meetings about opening schools, about opposing critical race theory, about supporting the First Amendment rights of students and teachers, they found themselves on a list in a private Facebook group that included 6 members of the school board, the Commonwealth Attorney, and Board of Supervisors member Julie Briskman, who the only tool she has in her playbook is to call everyone racist. And then, they were taking everybody, right? Names, dozens of names out there. They were looking through tax assessor records. They wanted to infiltrate, expose, even commit cybercrime, according to one post. And nobody felt any shame about doing that in this private group. No school board members stepped up and said, this is wrong, and exposed it and reported it to law enforcement. But what they did was create a great awakening here in Loudoun County. Now, a week later, the school came out with a statement that they would silence the opposition. Shared on social media by one Beth Bartz. And after that, we started the recall effort. And, you know, these silence the opposition statements and activities are not just threats. And we saw that threat acted upon just last month when they put Tanner Cross on leave for exercising his First Amendment rights. And then when the judge slapped them down and said, you violated his constitutional rights and you were vindictive in doing so, they didn't get the message. And now they're appealing it with our tax dollars. So, let me back up a second here. Take some big picture. 77 years ago last week, the eyes of this country were on the English Channel. Our brave soldiers were going to end the Nazi scourge. The Nazis, who didn't believe in freedom of speech, didn't believe in freedom of thought, and definitely did not believe in freedom of religion. They believed in hate. And we won that fight. And everyone that went there, that faced down the barrel of death, were fighting for our freedoms, for our children's freedoms, for generations of freedoms. But now, the eyes of the country are on Loudoun County, Virginia. We are the shield that will stop this abuse of our children, that will stop teaching people to hate each other, that will stop elevating socially constructed identity groups over the value of the individual, over the value of everything that our kids are, that we are trying to turn them into and make them be good human beings. But we are the shield, but with every shield, you need a sword. And it's, as we all know, the best defense is a good offense. So it is up to us. We hear the bell. We hear it. Every single one of us here has heard that bell, and we are answering that bell. And it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter your race, your religion, your sexual orientation. Everyone needs to rally to this cause. John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Well, what you can do for your country is join this fight for the future of America, for the future of your children, so that they can live. So that they can live in a country that still values meritocracy, equal opportunity for all, the rule of law, the Constitution, and treating others by the content of their character and no more. I've said this before, I'll say it again. This is the fight of our lives. And we're gonna win. Thank you.
I think we found our next local candidate. Great job, Ian. Great job. That courage and passion is contagious. And I want to tell you, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, but I am a proud Republican, and we need to rebuild our party. And I want to introduce, real quick, to have her say hello, the president of the Virginia Federation of Republican Women. Thank you, Paula, for coming all this way. At this time, I'm going to ask all the speakers to either come on the grass or on the stage so we can take a quick photo.
And before you go, remember to text Sentinel to 51776, Sentinel to 51776. We cannot thank you enough. If you want to organize rallies in your area, or if you want more of those handouts that are under the tent, I'm happy to get them for you. We're happy to do that.
I'd like all the speakers to either come up here on the grass or up on the stage. I don't trust all of us on the stage, I'm sorry. It's not a strong one. So let's take a quick group photo. Any other speakers? Gary, come on up. Come on in. Can you get on the other side of her? Oh. Come on in, Melanie. Any other speakers that I missed? Ryan Bomberger, where are you? There you are. Come on up here, brother. Anyone else? Chantal Cooper, where are you? She had to go back to work. That's important too.